That's history.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
We're just gonna pay more for
That's my question.
But I need to the continent, please miss it out here.
I'm all wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess you guys need to come back first.
We need to come back. Oh, well, we're missing one.
I think Rick's in the little room.
Yeah, take it.
Okay.
Nah, we don't miss it.
Yeah, we want.
I think I hear the door. Here you
Like,
go.
doesn't fall.
Oh, there used to be.
There you go.
Did I miss anything?
No, they're waiting on you.
Waiting on you.
Oh, yeah.
Waiting on you, man.
Yeah.
Not even back in yet.
It's no obstruction.
That's-
Happens, life goes on. Don't worry about it.
Okay, we're ready.
I gave you guys an outline tonight, and just because some of this stuff happened quite a while ago when we started this whole process, I wanted to kind of go back and remind you of what was in the previous contracts and with Mr. Cooper and where we're going. He originally purchased or contracted to purchase the property up there in May of 2013. That specific contract stated that, as is customary with all our new streets in town, the buyer would pay for materials and engineering, the city would provide labor and equipment. And that contract also had a specific provision that the streets in his development would be assessed equally to the buyer's lots except lot 12. From the very beginning, lot 12 has been excluded. Now, utilities, the agreement stated that the utilities will be brought to each building site up to a maximum of 12 at the seller's expense, we're the seller. So the city agreed at that point in time to bring utilities, sewer, water, electric, to the building sites. The buyer would pay for the gas line. Questions on any of that? In June, if you guys remember, there was some question about asphalt or concrete streets and what we were gonna do there. We came to an agreement, and a short little agreement that said the streets would be concrete with lay down curb. We came back in July with an addendum because Mr. Cooper and his council wanted some specific dates on when the city would have these things completed. We stated that utilities would be completed by May 1st of this year, with the electric being completed by December 31st, and the streets being completed by December 31st of this year. Again, it stated that buyer pays for materials and engineering, city pays for labor and equipment. And again, there's the lot 12 provision. So that's kind of where we've been. Okay. Okay.
Are we on track with the utilities?
My understanding is.
Yes, all utilities, including electric, are, they're there.
They're there, taken care of.
Yes.
Sure.
And gas is in it.
Yeah, gas is not there.
No.
We don't control that. The gas won't come in until we actually have a street there. So the gas company has been contacted, but they're not gonna be ready until we actually have the street in.
So they're ready, they're just waiting on the streets. They
On the
can-
street, yeah, they're ready to go. But the utilities that we have, water, sewer, and electric, are there.
So we began discussing what to do here because the city doesn't have a street completed. So we've had several meetings with Glenn, Mr. Cooper, his attorney, myself, transportation director, engineer, bond counsel, everybody has been working on this. And what we have presented, or what was presented, is an addendum to the original real estate contract. Specifically, this was put together for the streets, but since we were doing a contract, we decided to firm up a few things. One of those being utilities, that as it was stated in the original contract, and it's just restated in the addendum, there is no cost to the buyer to put those utilities. That was part of the original purchase price. So that's just restated in this addendum. The street improvements. Lots of discussions were about what to do with the streets, and the council decided to move forward with the rest of North Campus. So when that decision was made, it was determined that a good option would be to have the contractor that's doing that complete the rest of the Cooper addition because of time constraints on the city crew. So this agreement addresses several things with regard to the street. One of them being, again, as has always been in the agreements, the buyer would pay for materials and engineering, the city would pay for labor and equipment. Now, there is a provision in the contract that says that the cost for the street materials will not be higher to the developer or the buyer, just because the contractor's doing the work. Now, which that means is, if a contractor comes in and marks up stuff a little bit, buyer is going to pay the same price as he would have had the city been doing the work. You have in front of you just some estimates that we had put together, just so you know where all the numbers came from. This first one that says Silver Fox Estates Streets on the top, the city has completed or will complete 1,917 feet. Now, we've completed here and up to here, and some curb has been laid here, but it's not quite done. But the city's gonna go to just past this little intersection up here. So that's where we get to 1,917 feet. The contractor is going to come up around the curb and do that, or the curb, excuse me, do this, and then this little section here. So that's where you're getting your measurements there. Click Clark gave me a number of what the city has paid so far for materials. And you see that there. And we use that to come up with just an estimate going forward. Again, other than what's already been completed, these are just estimates. But the important part of the contract is that you see there, the 389, that the improvement district for materials and engineering will not be assessed more than $400,000. We feel pretty comfortable with that number. Both Stuart, everybody's looked at those numbers and feel pretty good about that. So, what's that?
Stuart Click as well as
Yes.
Mike Clark on it.
Yeah. And the other form that I gave you is the total estimated project cost of $630. On this one, I used $390 as an estimate for materials and engineering. And then you've got your labor estimate, $240. Now that came from Stewart Engineering. You have to remember that he pads those pretty good, so that he's always over. So it may not be even that amount. I mean, we don't know, but just realize that that labor figure is an estimate.
All these other things you talked about said there were estimates. What if they're higher?
The materials, if they're higher, then the materials to be assessed to the properties will not go over $400,000. So if they're higher, say they come in at $410 for some reason, then the city picks up that extra $10,000. And that is entirely just to be fair, because originally the city was doing the work. So now, when it comes to bonds, obviously the city has already paid out some money for materials, the $255,000. So we're going to be using bond financing to pay for the labor and the rest of the materials at $375. That will be lumped together with the $1.2 million number for the rest of North Campus when it comes to your temporary notes and your bond. Maybe any questions about that number? Now, going back to this agreement, we're kind of working through it. Let's see, street completion date is on here, June 15th. Obviously, we're here because we have a street completion date that wasn't correct. But between the engineer and Glenn and myself and Click, that date seems pretty good. Because this project, if approved, would be bid in January, would be started right away in the spring as soon as they could get in there weather-wise.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
If we give a contractor that date and he doesn't need it, does it fall on him?
That's certainly something that we could consider in the contract, yeah.
Because we don't want to get in this situation.
Exactly. And going along with that, as part of the bid, the contractor, we will ask him to start on the west side, over here. Complete this first, complete this little street, then head east. Of course, probably doing Dollar General next, because that's kind of our next project. So that would be part of it as well, is contractor can't come in and just choose where he wants to start. He has to start on the west side. Curbs. The original contract called for lay down curbs. Transportation director at the time, when this was started, was very much in favor of just regular curbs. So there was a discussion, my understanding, that the city would, if we do regular curbs, the city would come in and cut away the curbs wherever the driveways are gonna be. We don't know yet, because nobody's obviously built up there yet. So once they're ready for driveways, the city crews will cut away the curbs and build the small approach. Again, that's nothing we can really plan for, because we don't know where those are gonna be or anything yet. Now, damages. We obviously didn't fulfill our contract. So there are potential damages that if this were to go to litigation, we could be exposed to. The solution that we had come up with, we being, again, everybody, Glenn and myself and Mr. Cooper and his counsel, the most reasonable thing was that the city would forgive the debt owed on Pine Street in addition, in exchange for us not paying any damages to Mr. Cooper for not having the street done. Those damages could include interest, loss of profits, lost sale of lots, things like that. So that's kind of the agreement that we came up with, just make that a law, so that nobody's paying anybody money back and forth. So that's the addendum. This goes hand in hand with your resolution. In order to assess all these costs, you have to do your petition, which was with, I don't think it was put in front of you tonight, but anytime somebody wants a street, they bring a petition forward and sign it, and you showed that the other night. You don't necessarily have to approve that, but that goes hand in hand with this resolution. So what's being proposed is approval of the addendum and also approval of the resolution, which would start the process for bidding out the entire project, this and North Campus at the same time, and then paying for what's left of this and North Campus being paid for by temporary notes and then bond, which would be paid back through special assessments, sale of the lots, the lots the city owns, and then of course CIP money and other funds like that. Just so there's no confusion, on the last meeting in November, you approved a resolution. I'm getting away from Cooper now, so this is with the rest of North Campus. The last meeting in November, you approved a resolution which set a hearing to discuss improving the rest of North Campus. The reason that was done is there's no petition there. So you didn't have a property owner coming saying, hey, please build me a street. You guys on your own, by your own decision, said we want to build a street. So we did a resolution setting for a hearing. It was published. We had a hearing on December 2nd where the public could have come in and said, this is a terrible idea, this is a great idea, whatever. And then you passed a resolution on December 2nd to go ahead and build the rest of the streets in North Campus. Those are going to be assessed the exact same way as every other street, new street in town, with the property owners being assessed materials and engineering and the city paying the labor and the equipment. The difference is we have a contractor doing it, so it's a little more expensive because that's the nature. So that's what's been done already, and what is planned for North Campus. What this agreement with Cooper does is essentially just tax the rest of his project onto that North Campus project, which we felt, with using the engineer and everything, would be the most economical way of doing this. Does anybody have questions, or do you guys have comments?
Would you stand for any questions
Yeah,
that the
if
council would
questions for
have?
them, I'll let you.
Well, if we go to a lawsuit, what it's gonna cost us?
I'm sorry?
I think he's
We'll go
asked,
to a lawsuit.
what damages would you claim in a
Well,
lawsuit?
if we go to a lawsuit, we're gonna seek to specifically have the or have the city perform on the contract, which was to put the streets in. I think you're gonna have to do that irregardless.
Well, I understand that.
And if it continues to go on, we're just incurring more and more costs every day, more interest, more lost profit. I think your damages just increase as time goes on.
So what you're saying is, we pass this all tonight, and everything, it all comes to an end. We're all square and everything.
Assuming you build the streets by June 15th of 15, which,
What about taking the date out of
That
that?
date out.
The completion date?
Yeah, take the date out.
we're not gonna do
Katie
that.
said if a contractor, if we give him that date and he don't meet it, he's stuck with it, not us.
And they also thought that we could meet that very easily
Yeah.
with the contractor, so it shouldn't.
Well, and keep in mind that that's June 15th for the Cooper edition. That's not all of the streets that you're building up there.
So, Katie, I have a question. When we go to this resolution, do we ask for the resolution include the addendum, correct? We can put that in the same motion, or do we need to?
I would do
choose
them
one?
separately,
Do them separate, okay.
but keep in mind that it's
Which order do you want this?
very difficult to do one without the other.
Right.
Probably the addendum first and then the resolution.
Is that the petition?
The petition is this, what he signed. You can make a motion just to approve that if you want, but your resolution is essentially does that.
Okay.
All it does is sets out what the proposed project is, all the area to be assessed, but that's all in your resolution as well. You don't have that, you had it on Tuesday, you didn't have it tonight.
So the addendum will cover that, and then the resolution, everything, we'll have
Right.
everything,
I-
all our bases covered.
Yeah, I typed this really quickly earlier and I put approval petition, but that's not necessary, so ignore that.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, I'm asking again, to be all square, as long as the streets get put in.
I see.
The street, by 615. Be all square with everything.
That's really the only issue that exists at this point in time is the streets were to be done by now and they're not. And therefore, my client cannot build up there because there are no streets.
Well, you could build up there without a street. They, over here on south of St. John's, they put a house in there and they had to drive in the field.
Well,
I don't think anybody's
I
gonna
so
build.
move.
Okay, moving forward, I asked for a motion for the addendum.
So move.
Approve the addendum, it's been moved by Councilman Brown that we pass the addendum. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. Any further discussion? No further discussion. Mandy, would you take a roll call vote, please?
Richard,
Yes.
Gingler,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yep.
Latrell,
No.
Abel,
Yes.
Brown,
Yep.
Audie,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Okay, the addendum passes. Next item is the 2014-22 resolution.
So move.
Been moved by Councilman Brown that we accept the resolution number 2014-22. Is there a second?
No.
We just passed the
Just
addendum. Now we're on the resolution.
resolution.
Do I have a second?
Yeah.
Second by Councilman Gingler. Any further discussion? Manny, would you please take a roll call vote, please?
Richard,
Yes.
Gingler,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yep.
Latrell,
No.
Abel,
Yes.
Brown,
Yep.
Audie,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Motion carries. So the next item would be the
So move.
contract addendum. With-
I already did
Okay,
Yeah, we already done that.
Already done that. Okay, I'm on that. I move for adjournment.
So move.
Been moved by Councilman Brown that we adjourn, by a second. Second by Councilman Richard. Any further discussion? No further discussion? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstain. Motion, we're adjourned.
I don't have the specific, the city attorney.
Yeah, I think I got that. I seen that earlier. Around 20.
Show them Saturday to drink out there. Heather said she's fine. Just picture either her or Colleen. Probably. Well, Elam City have shuttle service to the Eagles, so they could go from, they could go down there, you know, we could get our way back down there, so.
My mower started. Yeah.
Heavy wet snow like that.
I thought my thing was turned, I was just pushing.
Well, we only got what we got, so.
That was a nice little wet snow.
Should put chains on it?
I've got chains on. I come in yesterday, I told him, I said, I gotta get